Ikas, over to you.
Cool. So welcome everyone. So here's another JS Lovers session, an online session, and we welcome you all. So we are JS Lovers, as you all know, and for the person or for the people who don't know us, so we are a non-profit organization. You can see all the links provided on the presentation screen. We are in New Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, and Jaipur. But there's something special about this webinar. There is, you can say, international speakers and domestic speakers as well. So we're gonna have a mix of experience all together today. So let's start with a very great uh, session. Along with, I'll go with my presentation. There's a code of conduct. Do not disrespect any technology or keep your opinions very polite for that matter. And be polite in your chat rooms as well, even on the Discord server of JS Lovers. So that is it. Let's start the meetup. And first of all, I would like to welcome Gift. So she is from Nigeria. She has just recently joined Passionate People as a front-end engineer. And that organization do work primarily in Vue.js. So she has a lot of experience behind. So let's welcome her and give her the stage so that she could start the presentation. Gift, over to you.
Thank you.
So I'm just unpresenting. You can now present your screen.
Okay, I am now sharing my screen. Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad that I get to speak at JS Lovers. Hi, everyone. Today, I am going to be talking about two of my favorite technologies, JAMstack and VueJS, specifically Gridsome. So my topic is JAMstack for the win static site generation with Gridsome. My name is Gift Egwuenu. I'm a front-end developer at Passionate People. And if you like to find me on social media, I'm on Twitter at LauraGift_. And you can also check out my website, giftegwuenu.com. Let's start with what the JAMstack is. If anyone is not familiar with the term JAMstack, it is not just a buzzword, it's a new way of building for the web. But before I define what JAMstack is, I'd like to break down the acronym JAM. So what does JAM mean in the JAMstack? JAMstack here, J stands for JavaScript. Basically, this means that you're building dynamic functionalities that are handled by JavaScript. There's also no restriction in the language, so you can decide to use Python, Ruby, or Go. And A here means APIs. You can also access third-party APIs through HTTP requests. So you have access to different third-party APIs that you can further make your web applications more dynamic. And then M stands for markup, which are your websites get served as static HTML files to a CDN. I'll explain more on that later. Now, bringing them all together, JAMstack has changed the way we think and build websites nowadays. JAMstack is a technique for building fast and secure sites delivered by pre-rendering files and serving them directly from a CDN. Now, we remove the requirements to manage or run servers, so you're not managing servers here. But before the JAMstack came into the picture, how were we building websites and applications? I would like to call the previous method the traditional stack, and I'll explain that using this diagram. Using this illustration, how the traditional web application were built is basically that they rely mostly on server-side code. So for every request you make, or for every request you make to render something on the browser, you're making a server-side request. And this is a very expensive approach because it can cost, it can make your website have slow performance, or it's adding a additional layer of latency. And oftentimes your system can also involve like a database or an external CMS like WordPress. So this wasn't like the best possible way for building web application. Now with the modern web, we have the JAMstack approach. How does this work? JAMstack removes all of those complexities because what the browser renders now is just static HTML files, which gets bundled at build time. So this makes the process very fast and less complicated because you're not executing any server-side code. Another benefit of the JAMstack is that all the content gets served from a CDN, a content delivery network, meaning that your content is globally available. So for instance, I'm in Nigeria right now. If I'm trying to access, say, netflix.com, it doesn't get served from a server in the US. It gets served from a server closest to me, so a server that's in Africa. And this would significantly impact the performance of the website that I'm trying to access. So why should you build this way? If some of the things that I've already said did not convince you, I have more benefits to share about the JAMstack. The first one is that it has better performance. So your site gets pre-built at build time, meaning that all of the files get generated as HTML files. So what you're rendering to the browser is just HTML files. And the fact that you're using the CDN to render those files makes it faster and improves the speed of those websites. It also has a great developer experience. As a front-end developer, and I know that other front-end developers are also here, we enjoy having the best time and we don't want to struggle with like debugging or trying to like manage database or server render code. So building with the JAMstack is a great way because it gives developers a better sense of what it feels like to develop with joy. So we can now focus more on the front end parts without having to deal with any monolithic architecture or expensive database. It also provides you high security. So now that you're no more managing servers on your own, but rather you're leveraging other services, those services already manages security. So you don't have to think about it on your own. It's also cheap and easy to scale. So you can save money by using or following the JAMstack because you spend less time on scaling and also it costs less amounts to deploy your applications. Now that I've covered what the JAMstack is and why you should use it, there are also some things that are not considered JAMstack, and I would like to mention some of them. Any website that is built with WordPress, Joomla, or Squarespace is not a JAMstack application. If you're building an SPA that uses isomorphic rendering to build the pages on the server at runtime, these are also not JAMstack applications. And lastly, any monolithic application that relies on backend application, either Node or Ruby or Python, we would not classify that as a JAMstack website. Here's a quick fun fact. There is a high chance that you've built a JAMstack site in the past without having knowledge that it had a fancy name. This was me in 2018. I built my first Google website not knowing that JAMstack existed. JAMstack ecosystem is constantly growing and there is a massive number of services and tools are available for you to leverage. And the good thing is that most of these tools are free. So if you take a look at this image here, you see countless numbers of tools that you use regularly for your day-to-day activities. Bringing some of these tools together helps you build JAMstack sites that are easily scalable and that are very fast. And that brings me to the next interesting part of my talk, Gridsome. What is Gridsome? Gridsome is a Vue-powered JAMstack framework for building static generated websites that are fast by default. I know you might be thinking, Gridsome, why is there a new framework or a new static site generator? What happened to VuePress, Nuxt, or even Gatsby? So why should you use Gridsome? I would like to explain some reasons why I think Gridsome is awesome. The first one is Gridsome has automatic code splitting. What this means is that Gridsome works super well with automatic code splitting, meaning that for every import you declare in your page, it gets bundled and served. It gets bundled and is served with that page. That means that your pages only load when you need them. It doesn't load the entire page at once. It only gets the pages that you need at a specific time. It also follows the PRPL pattern. This is a Google coined pattern that means push, render, pre-cache, and lazy load. All of these put together can help you boost or can help your application boost performance and it's a very good thing to leverage. It also has smart link prefetching. Gridsome has a built-in component called glink. You would use this in place of href when you're trying to link to other places or other routes in your application. The great thing about this component is that it helps you prefetch any link that is in Vue. It uses intersection observer in the background. What this means is that for every link or route you visit, once you hover your mouse on the link, it's already downloaded the resource for that page, so you can access it faster, and it gives your user a very smooth browsing experience. Then there is also the fact that Gridsome has a very large plugin ecosystem. Compared to like Gatsby, there is this significant reason for why you would use Gridsome is if you're a VueJS developer. But with Gridsome, there is a couple of plugins that are available for you to use. You can literally find a plugin for anything you want to do. And what is even better is if there is a plugin that does not exist for you, you can build yours by leveraging the Gridsome APIs, which I'll talk about in a minute. Data sourcing is another benefit of using Gridsome because you can use data from anywhere. It could be from Markdown files, JSON files, external APIs, or headless CMSs. The modern web right now is decoupled and modular. We don't build things the way we used to. We don't build things like how we used to build monolithic applications. Gridsome makes it painless to build JAMstack websites using data from multiple sources such as content APIs, headless CMSs, and other web services. How does Gridsome work? Gridsome brings a lot of things to the table, right? In development mode, when you're trying to use Gridsome, in development, you run Gridsome develop, and what happens is that Gridsome has a centralized data layer called the GraphQL data layer. This is where all the data in your application is being stored, and it pulls in data from different data sources. It could be you're pulling in data from WordPress headless API, or you're pulling data from Contentful, or it could even be the local Markdown files. All of this gets stored in the GraphQL data layer that you can then use within your Vue.js components. And when you're ready to build your application, you just run the Gridsome build command, and this renders static HTML files for you in production. Gridsome generates static HTML files that then iterate into a Vue.js single-page application once loaded in the browser. This means that you can build both static and dynamic applications with Gridsome. An example here is if you have an about page, Gridsome builds two different files for you. So it builds a HTML file and a JSON file. Now, when the application is being loaded, first of all, it uses the HTML file at first, and then for subsequent loads, it uses the JSON files to prefetch the data for your pages. It also uses Vue Router for managing the routing under the hood, and Vue Meta for managing the head tags as well. There are some core concepts you need to be familiar with when working with Gridsome. Some of them I would like to explain. The first one here is pages. So pages are responsible for presenting your data at a URL. Each page will be generated statically and have its own index file with the markup. So for example, if I create a page, a Vue component called about.view, it renders a page at the route/about. So there are actually two ways you could create pages in Gridsome. The first is by using the file system, which I just mentioned. This would involve you just creating a Vue.js component within the pages directory, and it will automatically render a page in your browser. The other way is by using the Pages API, which helps you like manually create pages using the create pages hook. I'll show a demo of that later. Then the layouts components are what you use to wrap your pages. So you think about this as the header, the footer, or the sidebar of your website. The collections, a collection is a group of nodes, and each node contains a field with custom data. Collections are very useful. Gridsome has, like I mentioned, Gridsome has a centralized data layer for managing all of your data. So we can see collections as part of that data layer. You can have a block collection, a products collection, or a tag collection. You can actually have any type of collection, but think about it in this way, that you're pulling in data from external sources. So it can be that you're pulling in data from a CMS or from an external API, and you want to populate it in the data layer. You use the collections. So in this case, if I have a post collection and I'm pulling in data from Contentful, it creates different nodes for me. If you decide not to use the data or source plugins, you can actually create manual data using the data store API. Templates are used to create single pages for your node. So if you create a collection, you also need to create a template. So if you have a post collection, you also need to create a post component inside of the template directory. I'll show you what that looks like later. Images, Gridsome has a built-in G-image components that outputs optimized progressive image. So if you're working with Gridsome, it's better for you to use these components when you're trying to render an image rather than just using the normal image tag, because this comes with some added benefits. So if you're trying to load your website, instead of just having like a blank page before the image is displayed, this will show like a blurry effect with the image first, and then progressively loads the image. That's one of the benefits of using this G-image components. The possibilities of what you can do with Gridsome is endless, and I've only just scratched the surface by just telling you some of the things that is possible. You can do so much more. You can extend Gridsome if you want to. Two ways you could do this is by using the data store API and the pages API. Let's see how to use these two APIs. The data store API, what does it do? It lets you insert your own data into the GraphQL data layer. So earlier I said that you can get data from different sources. It could be headless CMSs, external APIs, or it could just be Markdown or JSON files. So let's see how we can actually create our own data layer from using the data store API. So I have this quick demo that I would like to show you. Hopefully it works. So in the Gridsome server.js file, this is where you configure both the data store API and the pages API. So I just want to create, first of all, I'd like to show you the data store explorer for Gridsome. Here, I just bootstrapped this Gridsome app, so there is actually nothing inside of it except the home page, which is here, and it has some collections already. We have this metadata collection, the page collection. So now I want to create a post collection. So how I'll go about that is by here creating, I can say, call it post and called actions.add collection. This is what will populate the data layer with this collection. I can also give it a type name. So if I don't just want it to be like post, I can specify the kind of name it should be. So I can just call it blog posts here. And then I can go ahead and add nodes. So here I would say post.add node. This is a method from Gridsome that add nodes rather. And now I can add what I want this post to be. So I would like to add a title. Click my title. I'll add a date. And a description. The great thing here is once you reload, because you have to reload, you have to run the yarn develop command again. This should be posts. Demos are and this should be add node. Hopefully that works. Great. So when I refresh the data layer, I should see that collection that I just created here. And if I query this using GraphQL query, say all posts, get all those posts. Just put one here.
Gift, sorry to interrupt you in between. Could you just zoom in a bit on both the screens on VS Code and your Chrome browser?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Hope this is better. So here, like I added title. First of all, they're within edges and node, and then I can get the date, title, and description. And when I run this, it should return exactly what I added inside of this data store API. So basically what this is if you don't want to use an external like source plugin, but you just want to create your own data, you can extend by using this data store API. The same also applies to a page. So naturally, this is what the Gridsome content file structure looks like. I mentioned that we have components, we have layouts, we have pages, and we have templates. You can create a page manually by, like, there is an about the view right here. And if I go over to this and go to /about, it already exists. But there are certain situations where you might need to create your pages programmatically. And that is where you now use the create page API. So basically how you would use that is by adding, let me just go over here. You add the create page, the path, and the components where you want it. So I can, first of all, inside of templates, I want to create a new page called products or posts. I'll create that file products.view. And now go here and say, I want to create this page programmatically by using this create pages hook and call the path. So on my browser, I want it to redirect to /posts. And the component I want it to use is, this is within the source directory /template /post products. That's what I called it. Okay. I'll change this to products. Now, if let's see if there's actually something there first, and I need to reload my page. The reason why I'm reloading this is, if you notice, when I run here and develop, it does a couple of things. Okay, now there is a problem. What am I doing? Create page. It's always the S. Okay. This should work. No. Products.view. Okay, this is going to generate the pages and the templates. So that's why I need to reload. So now this page should exist, but I don't have anything with that within that component. But that's just showing you how you can programmatically create pages, and also how you can extend the data store by using the data store API. I'm going back to my slides now. There are different people that already use Gridsome in development. I found this very helpful website called Built with Gridsome. It has a list of different people's websites that were built with Gridsome. I just wanted to show you some websites. If you can see, here is mine as well featured there. So if you're, after this talk, if you want to explore more about Gridsome, I would advise you check out the documentation first. You can also check out the Built with Gridsome websites, because some of those websites have like the GitHub link there, so you could see how people are building web applications with Gridsome. You could also check out Gridsome articles on dev.to and also the Gridsome Discord server. I hope you learned something from this talk, and if you have any questions, happy to take them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for giving us so much knowledge around Gridsome. So I'll run you through across some of the questions we faced. So we have two windows. We have some questions on Discord as well, and some on the chat windows. First question for you is, you have showcased G-image, right? So someone asked, Animesh actually asked, is G-image like Medium's image lazy loader or not?
Medium. I don't think I know what medium image lazy loader is, but I would think that it is what it seems like. Basically, the G image helps you load your image progressively. So I don't know if I can show you this. Okay, I don't have any image. Okay, I can show you from my website. When I first load it, you'd see this, if it's going to work. Taking a bit. But basically, it has this blurry effect at first. So instead of like just, okay, that was quite fast. But yeah, I would agree that it is the same thing with Medium's image lazy loader because it loads your image with the lazy loading effect, I guess.
Okay. So next question for you is that can we use some other REST API instead of GraphQL?
Yeah, so the good thing is if you decide to use, like I explained earlier, you can use different API from different sources. You could use REST API. So you could use like, you could get data from an external REST API. But the thing with GraphQL, with Gridsome is it has this centralized data store, like I mentioned. So you definitely still need to query those APIs that you got as REST inside of your Vue components using GraphQL. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, cool. So I guess I don't have much questions. So question to audience, do you have any more questions? So you can add the people in the Hangout chat, Hangout session, can ask their question in the chat window, and people watching on the YouTube, you can send us your questions to the Discord server. So let's wait for some moment so that if anyone has any question, even on the Hangout, people can unmute themselves and ask the question. I guess there are no more questions.
All right.
Probably Gift, you can stay on the call if that's possible. You can just go on the Discord server. If there would be any questions, you can answer them there. Probably
Okay.
if we find any, will just shoot you. There's one question for you. How it is different from Gatsby?
I would say the significant difference is the framework it's built on. So Gridsome is built on Vue and Gatsby is built on React, but there are quite a lot of similarities between them.
Right. Okay. There's another one. SSR, SSG, CSR, this belongs to which bucket?
I know what SSR, server-side rendering, static side generator, but I'm not sure what CSR here means, and I'm not also sure.
Client-side rendering.
Oh, I feel like it depends on what you're trying to build, right? But with Gridsome is majorly Gridsome majorly fits into static site generation here. When you think about Nuxt, on the other hand, you could do server-side rendering and also static side rendering with Nuxt.
Cool.
Okay.
I guess that's it. Gift, thank you so much for joining us. And hope to see you again on our platform, giving us a lot of knowledge around. Thank you.
Thank you.
So here we go with our next speaker. We're going with James George. So let me give a brief introduction about him. So he's a student, and have done a lot of things in open source. So let's hear out from him what he has to present for us. James,
yeah,
on to you.
Yeah. I hope I'll just present my screen right now. Okay. I guess now my screen will be visible right now.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay.
Great. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks Eka for the introduction. Yeah, so I'm James George and I'm an undergraduate student from Kerala So today I'm going to be speaking on a dev utility that I've been building for the VueJS community. It's called the MEVN-CLI. So a bit about myself. So as I said before, I'm an undergraduate student from Kerala. I'm pretty much into open source software at the moment, and I was also the mentor for the project Webpack as part of Google Summer of Code. And you can find me on Twitter on this handle at the rate James_Mathmax, and on GitHub you can find me on the handle James007. Yeah, so let's move ahead. Okay, so let's talk about the current problem.
James,
I'm
sorry to
sorry, yeah.
interrupt. Can you keep your microphone slightly away? There's a bit of disturbance.
Okay, just a minute. Just a minute. Okay. So is it fine now?
Yeah.
Okay, I hope everything looks right.
Your screen is unshared. You can
Yeah,
share.
I just shared my screen right now. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. So as I was saying, the current problem we are all aware that the JavaScript ecosystem is evolving quite a lot. So we have in each and new framework coming out each and every day, and of course all those frameworks are expected to be accompanied by a dev utility or say a command line interface. So to cite an example, we have a popular example out there, say create React app. So, as you can see over there, create XApps, it stands for the create XApps set of tools. We have plenty of them, say create React app, create NuxtJS, and so on. So most of the tools are just focused on the project scaffolding phase. That means that just provides you a starter template to work on top of, nothing more than that. Now, when it comes to the Vue CLI, and Vue CLI, by the way, is the official CLI tooling for the Vue.js ecosystem. And when it comes to Vue CLI, it is kind of like an exception to the traditional approach by extending the purpose beyond just their scaffolding. Yeah, so that's a better example. And of this sort, yeah, so this was why I made my MEVN-CLI. Yeah, so MEVN-CLI, as the tagline suggests, is a light speed setup for MEVN-Stack based web applications, and it is an opinionated CLI solution for the MEVN-Stack, and it takes care of everything from basic project scaffolding to the deployment phase, thereby increasing the developer productivity. So the developer is not expected to leave his terminal to get his task done. Now it's a demo time now, and I'm going to be showing you how to get up and running with a full stack application. Okay, so I hope my terminal is visible to you. Okay.
Yeah, that's visible.
Okay, so these are the available commands as part of that MEVN-CLI offers, and we have the very first command over here. It's called init, and init stands for initialization. Yeah, so just as we have in case for the Vue CLI, we have the Vue create command, and yeah, so and the only purpose is to scaffold a brand new project to work on top of. Yes, and so the very next command is code split, and as the name suggests, it is just required to easy load components as required. And following up, we have generate, and that generate component has generate command has multiple purpose. So it can generate use single file components for the client side as well as generate thread-based templates for the server side. And moving ahead, we have the add command to add additional plugins on the go, and we have the serve command for serving your web app locally, and the dockerize command to serve your web app locally in a Docker container. And finally, the deploy command. Yeah, so now let's see them in action. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new application in my desktop app. So I'm going to type in MEVN init and name of
James.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Probably
okay.
you can go a bit slow, and people are messaging that your voice is slightly scratchy. So if you speak slowly,
sorry about that. I'm not sure if the network. I'll try my best. Okay, so can you please confirm if my screen is properly visible to you in proper?
Yeah, screen is perfectly visible. Just problem with your voice.
Screen is
You can,
visible. It just, I guess, the voice is getting echoed and there is a network lag as well.
Okay.
So if you could speak a bit slowly, it would help us to understand
Okay.
where things are going.
Okay. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, so as I was saying, I'm just going ahead by creating a new project in the desktop tab. For that, all you have to do is just type in Maven init space your project name, and I'm gonna hit enter. Okay, now you'll be greeted with this set of prompts, and you are asked to choose between a starter template of choice. Okay, so the very first starter template is the default one. As the name suggests, it includes the pretty basic to work on top of, and it includes view router by default. And next up we have the progressive web app. And in case you require the features offered by progressive web app, you can go with that option. And the third option is GraphQL. So in case you require the Apollo GraphQL clients, you can go with the third option. And finally, we have the NuxtJS. And in case you require server-side rendering, you can go with that option. And I'm gonna go with the very first option for now, the default one. And now you'll be greeted with this prompt asking whether you require a full stack application or just a client-side application. And I'm gonna go with a full stack application for now, and I'm gonna hit enter. Okay, so now a new application is being created on the desktop app. As you might have noticed, we have a new app folder being created on the current app. So all you have to do is just navigate to that newly created folder and type in MEVN-CLI. Okay, so MEVN-CLI is a command to serve your web-based applications locally in your local environment. So just hit enter, and it asks whether you need to serve your client or your server. And now let's go with the client. Okay, so it is going to take a while, and in the meantime, let's go ahead and serve the server as well. Yeah, so it installs the dependencies and serves the web app locally for us, and it takes a bit of time. Okay. Okay, yeah. So we now have the server up and running. Now let's get back to our browser and check whether if we can access the server. Okay. Server is available at localhost port 9000. And as you might have noticed, we have the client-side template already being served on the default browser. Okay, so now we have both the client as well as the server being served on a local environment. So that just saved us a couple of keystrokes. Okay, so let me just turn back to my terminal. Let's quit it for a while. Okay, yeah. So now I'm gonna go ahead and generate a full stack template. So as you might have noticed, right now we just have a pretty basic template. And what I need is a CRUD-based template for the service. We need to set up something on based on the model view controller architecture. And with MEVN-CLI, it's pretty simple. And you're going to be greeted with this prompt saying whether you're expected to create a new component for the client side or a CRUD boilerplate template. So in our case, we are going to go with the second option. It says CRUD boilerplate for the server. So when I just hit enter, and we have to provide a path to the local database server, and it defaults to localhost 270. That's the default port for the MongoDB server. And then I hit enter. Yeah, so it installs a couple of dependencies for us. And right now it installs, yeah, as you can see from the logs, it installs the Mongoose ORM, and you're all set to address the TBT. Okay, now let's go ahead and serve our server again. Okay, let's return back to browser and check whether if there has been any difference or not. 9,000, okay, 9,000 API. Yeah, so as you might have noticed, we have a couple of data being pulled from the database. Okay, this wasn't the case before, and now we have a full stack template for the server side. Let's quickly inspect the project directory, project hierarchy in our text editor. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So this is the newly created project that we have. Yeah, we have the client folder as well as the server folder, and these files are just being created right now. So you can notice a controllers folder, a helpers that contains the necessary connections to the database, as well as the models directory, a routes folder, and associated configurations over there. Yeah, so now let us just generate a couple of new components for the client side. And for that, let's type in the exact same command, and it asks us to provide the component name. And what I intend is to create a pretty basic CRUD application, meaning that would demonstrate the create, read, update, and delete operations. So I'm gonna go ahead and type in users. Okay, users. That would be a page component. Okay, so things are being cooked behind closed for us. Yeah, so as you might have noticed, okay, yeah. So it just created a new component in the respective tab. Let's go ahead and inspect it in our text code editor. Okay, so as you can notice, we have a newly created component for us by the CLI. And now let's return back to our browser and go to serve our client. Okay, now the client is being served locally, and it will be up and running. Yeah, and now a new route has been created for us. Yeah, so as you can notice, we have a new component, and the associated route configurations is being automatically taken care of. And let's inspect the router.js file, and as you can see, the respective component is being imported, and the respective entry has been inserted to the respective file. Okay, now what left over is to create a couple of new components as well. And before that, I'm gonna go ahead and grab a couple of boilerplate code, so that for the course of this demo, I'm not gonna like code. Okay, let's grab a couple of boilerplate code. Turn back to yeah. So we have a couple of routes over here. We have a users list, and let's just update our users component to display a couple of users that is being pulled from the server side. Okay, let's return back to our code editor, and let's update the users component file. Okay. And we can notice an error saying that we forgot to install the Axios module. And to do that, just type in MEVN add Axios. So as I said before, we have the add command to add additional plugins on the go. And with that, we can add Axios. So it asks whether you require to install the dependencies in the client directory. Okay, so yeah, so it just saves a few keystrokes for us. We just don't have to go from client. We just don't have to navigate between the client and server directories. We can perform each and every action from the root map. Okay, so and everything is back up and running. Okay, so okay, yeah. So we just forgot to update the main.js file. Let me just quickly grab the boilerplate code for that. Okay. Yeah. So we are extending the prototype so that the API URL is being accessible in each and every child components. And let's go ahead and quickly serve the server locally as well, so that the data is being pulled from the database. Okay. Yeah. So you can notice a couple of details that are appearing on the browser. So these data is being pulled from the local database server, and now we have the ability to update, delete, and create as we intend. Now let me go ahead and create another component. Okay. Yeah, we have the client server over here and MEVN generate. Okay. Now we can create a new component to create a new entry, say create. Okay, now it is of course gonna be a page component. Okay, so yeah, now we are creating a new component named create.view, and yeah, so we have a new entry over here, and the router configuration has been updated as per our requirements. And create.view. Let me just go ahead and grab the boilerplate code for create.view and return back to my code editor, and everything will be fine right now. Okay, yeah. So now we can just create a new entry, say Jack Daniel. Say we need another name. create entry. Yeah, so we have the new entry appearing over here. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And we also forgot to implement the update component, and it's just a matter of few keystrokes. And let's go ahead and type MEVN generate, and the name of the new component is update to update the respective entries. And it is of course gonna be a page component, and it is gonna get things up for us. Yeah, okay, great. And now let me just, so this is basically the last part of the boilerplate code, update.vue, and let me just quickly get back to my code editor and find update.vue, update the component, and create users. Yeah. Oh, we forgot to update the route config, and that's just a matter of, that's just a one-liner. We need to update the update route such that it receives a dynamic argument as part of the path. So yeah, so we can notice there's a dynamic ID coming right after the update path, and we can update the entries as we wish. What we're supposed to do is to deploy this full stack application to Heroku, and to do that, it's pretty simple with MEVN-CLI, and all you have to do is type in MEVN deploy and wait for a while and until everything gets right. Okay, let's choose serve for now. Okay, enter the name for the app. I'm gonna go ahead and type in MEVN server demo. This has to be unique since the URL is being constructed just after the name you provide here. I'm gonna go ahead with the name MEVN server demo for now, and let me quickly grab a URL to my MLabs instance. Okay, yeah. Okay, we have server here. Okay, I just provided a path to a cloud-based MongoDB. That means we have a cloud-based database as a server, database as a server service. I just provided the path to that respective service, and now we have Heroku CLI acting behind the scenes. Okay, it will take a while. You can see that the build succeeded. Okay, now it will be launching in a while. Okay, after it's done. Okay, yeah. So respective server is being deployed to Heroku, and now if we go to the API route, yeah. So as you might have noticed, we have a different set of data appearing right now. That's because in production we are fetching the data from the cloud service, while before we were fetching the data from the local database server. Okay, okay. So let me just quickly get back to my terminal. Oh, we need to update the API URL such that it reflects this server. Okay, let me just update my main.js file. Okay, okay, yeah, let's just update the respective path so that it reflects the production version. Okay, so let's go ahead and deploy the client now. Okay, the client, choose Heroku. Right now we are just supporting two platforms, Surge and Heroku, and of course more support is gonna be coming up in the future. And I'm gonna name it MEVN client demo. Okay, enter a name for the app, MEVN client demo, and it is supposed to be taking more time than the server counterpart, since it has to do a bit of more work. So in case you aren't aware, to deploy a plain client-side application to Heroku, you have to set up a server that would serve your production level build. And behind the scenes, MEVN-CLI takes care of everything and sets up the respective things for you. Okay, so as you can notice from the logs, it is installing the dependencies, and just as we would do in the local environment step. And it would take a bit more time than before, as I said before. Okay, so let's wait for a while until everything is up and running. So we have serve static being installed. Okay, serve static express and serve static being installed. That makes sure that your client bundle is being served. So that's how Heroku dynos work in case of client-side applications. So compiled successfully, ready for production. Okay. Yeah, so let's wait for a bit amount of time. Okay. Yeah, so the disk directory is ready to be deployed. And all you have to do is just type in MEVN deploy and wait for a while. So that would of course save a rather number of keystrokes for you. Also, yeah, okay, build succeeded. It's compressing. Okay, so all these logs come from Heroku CLI, and yeah, it's released to MEVN-CLI demo.herokuveb.com, and it's verifying the deploy. The deployed edition is being served in our default. Yeah, so as you can notice, we have respective data being pulled from the database as a service server. In our case, it's an MLab. And as you can notice here, these are the exact same data over here. Says Brand, George, and Xiang. And we got the exact same data over here. That means and it is capable of doing everything just as we did locally. Okay, so that's what about and we just deployed a what to say pretty basic to Heroku keystrokes, and that's what MEVN-CLI can do for you. And now let me get back to my slides. Okay. Yeah, so to get to know more, from these links. You can this is the GitHub repo. Uh, yeah, so this is the GitHub repo. So I would love to have contributions from the community. So this project is still in its infancy stage, and I would love to have contributions from the community. Okay, now speaking about the documentation, we can also get to know more about the tooling from the docs available at this particular URL. Okay, we have a couple of demos over here, available commands. You can get to know how the tooling works from respective documentation, and yeah, of course the Twitter handle. And in case you wish to stay updated with the latest releases, you should definitely follow the Twitter handle. Okay, so finally, so in case you wish to support the project financially, we have an open collective page, and it will be paid support. Yeah, so those were the links, and I will be happy to answer any questions. In case you have any questions.
Great, James. Thank you so much for giving us great knowledge around MEVN-CLI. So let's look upon some of the questions. There's one question from Neha. She mentioned what actually motivated to build the CLI. And the second one, what was the process behind this? How you followed it?
Yeah, so the actual motivation came from MEVN-CLI. There was this actually a same counterpart for the MEVN stack. So it was built by this company called Hashno. And so I just came to know about that particular tooling. And since I was working with VueJS at that time, I thought, why not build something for the VueJS community? And that's how the entire thing started. And regarding Akers, can you repeat the second question? I just forgot.
How you followed the process around?
Yeah.
How you ended up today you're presenting the complete process.
Yeah, okay. So at first, so as I said before, I was working with Vue.js at that time, and I had no knowledge regarding how the CLI works when it comes to the Node.js ecosystem, and I didn't have any knowledge regarding that. So I just dived into the Vue CLI code base. I also got the opportunity to contribute to the code base, and I came to know about the command line argument parser libraries, and I did fell in love with them. And that's how the entire process, that's everything in a nutshell. Yeah, so, and hopefully everything goes well.
Great. So I guess we don't have any more questions.
Okay.
So I would reach out to all the audience, Hangout session or on the YouTube. If you have any questions for James, to post on the Discord server or on the chat window, so that, or even you can unmute on the Hangout session to ask him directly. If you have any questions with MEVN-CLI, I hope it's a great initiative.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's look forward to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
So that's the PPT, James. So we will be
Yeah, for
sharing
sure.
all the PPTs on the Meetup channel.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll share all the links there.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
audience asking for the links of the PPTs, you can find all the links on the Meetup channel.
Okay.
So we'll share those. And thank you, James.
For having me.
On the Discord server,
Wonderful.
and if there are any questions, you can answer them directly
Yeah,
there.
yeah, for sure. Okay.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for
So
having me.
let's start with the last talk of the day. And before that, we'll have a 5 minutes break. So it's around 7 now, or it's 3 minutes to 7. So we'll join back in 5 minutes. Stay tuned. Have a nice break. Just a small to share. Since we are not virtually so still we can have some snacks. So I have some snacks for you all. So it's virtual pizzas. So it's a 5 minutes break. Let's have our pizzas baked in our homes, and we'll get back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Hey, so let's start back again. I hope everyone is staying tuned. So we are starting back. So let's welcome now Tarun for our next meetup. I'll just unshare my screen. And so Tarun, actually, I would like to give an introduction bit of around Tarun. Tarun, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Cool.
Uh, let's start with the presentation. So he is CTO and co-founder for Icon Scout. You've heard of a lot of icon-based companies like Icon Finder, and so he's the guy for you. If you have any doubts related to today's presentation by Tarun or related to his company, anything related to it, you can directly reach out to him. So Tarun, the stage is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for introduction. Uh, my screen is visible?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's start for today. Okay, yeah, so I'm co-founder and CTO of Icon Scout, and you can reach out to me on social Tarun Mangukiya. I have I mostly work with JavaScript, VueJS, Docker, Kubernetes, and CI/CD. So like even after session, you have any confusion or doubt regarding those things, I'll be happy to answer them. And so let's start about our today's topic regarding speed improvement for NuxtJS, right? So in today's session, we'll be covering why should we improve the speed at first, right? So what is the point of improving speed? After that, we'll be covering up why not pure Vue.js. So in the session, we have specifically written that it's about Nux.js. So I'll share my views on why you work with Nux.js rather than Vue.js mostly. I mean, it's a framework, and yeah. So why not pure Vue.js? After that, we'll dive into some of the tools that we can use to detect the issues that's there on site, and maybe on how on insights on how can we improve that. After that, like in HTML CSS optimization and in JS code optimization part. And after that, we'll cover up some of the other optimizations like CDN and stuff like that, like speed, other networking related issues. So let's start with why should we improve the speed, right? So usually whenever we are browsing the web, so after some time we close the tab if the site is slow, right? So as per industry data, usually 6 to 10 30% of people close the tabs if your site takes more than 6 to 10 seconds. So it takes from requesting the site to loading all the HTML, JavaScript, and everything, right? So if your site is larger, let's say you have enterprise application like Icon Scout that we have, then obviously that is something we have to take care of. Apart from that, that is also related to the revenue, right? So in e-commerce, there is this person named Neil Patel who's famous in SEO. So he says that whenever a 1 second delay in page response can result in 7% reduction in conversion, right? So if you improve your page speed by even 1 second, so it can increase your conversion rate dramatically, right, up to 7%, right? So that is something very important insight to look for. And after that, yes, why not pure Vue.js? Like, why do I prefer Nux.js better, or even when I'm trying out any small application, I go with Nux.js rather than Vue.js, right? So when it comes to Nux.js, so it has all these built-in libraries, right? It has this Vue, it has Vue router, which is used for routing across different pages. It does have this Vue store. It does have a very good project structure, right, that we can use, right? After that it comes after that it does have server side rendering, pre-rendering, and they have also added static site generation recently only, right? And on the main thing about like there are these are just features, right? But in VueJS, all of these things are optimized, right? So if you are not using Vuex store, it will be automatically removed, right? There is just one toggle for that. Also about Vue router, so all the pages are automatically lazy loaded, right? So if you are loading up home page, so all your other code won't be loaded at all. So about page or any other product detail page or search page won't be loaded. So the JavaScript for code for those pages, right? So this is something that's why I look up to NuxtJS rather than using pure Vue.js and importing router and store and everything manually. Right. So after so how can we detect the issues that we have in our site? Right. So let's go into the tools that I'm mostly using to detect the issues and to solve them. And yeah, first and foremost tool is there are 5-6 types of tools. So first and foremost, most used tool that I use is Google PageSpeed Insights. Right. So those who don't know, Google PageSpeed is something that can give you end user data of how much time the page will take on a mobile device and a web device to load the site. And it also shows us some of the HTML and CSS or request or basic SEO related issues that we can solve, right? So for example, let me show you. I have just analyzed this page. You can Google it out, Google PageSpeed Insights, and you will find a link, and you can put any link in there and you will be able to see like what is a page speed score out of 100 of any page. So I have put this meetup links of our JS Loves Bangalore, and it shows us some of the data, like how much time does it take to show initial screen to user, then how much time will it take to be interacted, right? So the meetup page that we have, it takes around 6 seconds to get interactive. You can scroll or stuff like that, right? So these are basic points that Google gives. After that, we have some of the opportunities where we can improve. So first point is reducing server response time, right? So sometimes it might be related to backend API calling, or this might be also related to maybe if we are using SSR, then it might be related to static this thing. Right. So we might have to work on it. This may or may not be front end issue. After that, we have let's say removed unused JavaScript. Right. So we might have some of the JavaScript that's not being used on the page at all. Right. So we can look into this JavaScript links over here, and we can rectify them on step by step. Right. So then it also shows us, let's say, if we need to improve the images, right? So we mostly use JPG or PNG images on the web, right? Google also does have this WebP images. You can serve those WebP images from server, and you can speed up the page. Also, it will also show that if you can compress the images, right? So there are these 4 or 5 images which are like 120 KB. We can compress it to 96 KB and stuff like that, right? So this insights that Google PageSpeed Insight shows, those are mostly actionable, right? You can let's say even in the bottom, it also shows that how much time each our JavaScript file takes, right? So we have this Meetup has this react.js file which takes around 2 seconds to which takes 2 seconds CPU time, right? So this is something meetup.com can optimize for, right? So Google PageSpeed Insight comes very handy in this case. After that, we have something called GT metrics, right? So GT metrics is something which shows the waterfall of it. It's a basically network chain, right? So whenever we open up home page and it calls some of the JavaScript, it calls some of the images, and then also some analytical codes and stuff, right? So when you use GT metrics, you will be able to see this chain like in the network we see, and you can look to those URLs, and you can rectify if some URL is extra being loaded, and if you can remove those links. There's some analytical tool that you might have added by mistake or by trial, and you can remove there. And then some of the images that might be loading in the beginning, but you don't need them, then you can also remove those images and maybe lazy load them, like using some kind of medium type lazy loader, or using pixelated loader methods. Right, so JT metrics is useful in those cases, seeing our network chain and removing unnecessary files from them. After that, this one is most important for any front-end developer. That is called Webpack Bundle Analyzer, right? So in this tool, this shows a whole the JavaScript file that will be generated once we build our package, right? So what I have done right now is I have like created a dummy app that has some of the packages, and I have generated this analyze graph. So this shows that like our vendor app is around 2.45 MB, and even gzip after applying gzip compression, it is like 194 KB. Maybe I might be able to zoom a little bit. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it's a 194 KB, and most of it is being like it's being taken by Bootstrap View, which is like 1.68 MB, and there is also Bootstrap CSS, which is 142 MB, right? So we can see there is a way to optimize this Bootstrap View, right? So we might be using a one or two component in our Nuxt file in our Vue application, right? But like it's been loaded the fully, right? So what we can do is we can use we can use some of the methods that I'll show you in the later slides to improve this Bootstrap View component, right? So right now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, 6, around 5, 6 files, that's the JavaScript file that's being generated, right? So using Webpack Analyzer, you can look into this graph and you can see, okay, which library that you maybe replace with a better library, right? After Webpack Analyzer, we have, why is it? Okay, yeah. Google Code, sorry, Chrome Dev Tools code coverage, right? So you, as you know, right? So whenever we are writing code, like around our 20-30% code is not being used when the page is loaded, right? We might have a model or some type of actions when the code is being used, when the code gets executed, right? So using code coverage in Google Chrome Dev Tools, you can get into the insights of when the page is loaded, how much part of the code that is being executed exactly, right? So for example, in the image left side, we have a bunch of JavaScript and bunch of CSS files loaded when the page is loaded, right? So if you can say ideally 87, 67, 86, this much percentage of code is not being executed when the page is loaded, right? So what we can do is we can click on those individual files, and we can see it will also show us red and green marks in the file itself, right? And we can remove the red. How we can think on how can we lazy load those JavaScript codes, or those JavaScript portions, right? So we can do something like we can load those JavaScript files after the page is loaded, or you use some kind of lazy loading methods, right? So uh, uh, Google Chrome DevTools is also useful when you want to see how much percentage of your CSS is not being used, right? So when we use a Bootstrap, so in that case, there is a lot of other components, let's say tables, then print files, and many other CSS codes which are not used when the page is loaded, right? So this is something we can improve for, right? Yeah, so these are the tools these are some of the tools using which you can improve your page speed, and you can you can get insights on what is a portion where you can improve, or what is the file exactly where you can improve your code for speed, right? So let's dive into some of the HTML CSS optimization parts, right? So one of the foremost, or one of the very important part is using properly sized images in the code, right? So we have, let's say we are using 200 by 200 image in the code, then we should resize our images properly, and we can also lazy load them. Let's say we have a page which has 5-6 fold of the page, then we can apply there is a attribute called loading is equal to lazy, which is available on Google Chrome and also Firefox now. So you can use this attribute, and your images will be loaded when people scrolls the page, right? So let's say you are on header part, so your bottom images won't be loaded until people scroll those pages, right? So this is something inbuilt, and you can use this directly, right? Then yes, obviously what you can do is rather than writing all the CSS in common CSS file, it's a main.css or app.css, you can use style block of the or single file of you, right? So using this, all your CSS will only be loaded when your component is being used on part of your page, right? So this improves many of your, and this basically improves our code coverage of CSS and also JavaScript. Right. After that, what this is the third one is the trick I usually use. So let's say we might have some we are many times we are using some type, we are adding some type of actions on image hover or product hover. So what I usually do is whenever there are a bunch of more code, like larger code on there. So at that time, I rather than using display none or display block, I just mark them VE for I use them with VE or V else, right? So that what happens when the page is loaded, those part of the code won't be executed at all, right? So and when we hover those component, it will trigger let's say change the hover variable, and using VIF or VLs we will be able to load those actions on by applying mouse hover and mouse leave events. Right. So this is mostly useful where the components are being repeated. Let's say in search pages where we have actions on each item, right? Download or any other 10, 20 actions. So this is useful in those cases. After that, it comes the JS code optimization thing, which is basically which is something which will spend most our time on. Yeah, this one is the one which will take more time. So in JavaScript code optimization, we have different methods, right? So using JavaScript code optimization, we'll see difference in output of this Webpack analyzer. And after we deploy our app, we will also be able to see those results in Google page speed that is related to JavaScript, right? We will also see reduction in JavaScript execution time or JavaScript file size that was visible on the top, right? Unused JavaScript and all. Right. So one for first and for I think most used thing is that dynamic imports, right? So Webpack has this dynamic import method using which we can lazy load the components that we are showing dynamically, right? So for example, I have, like all of us, we have login form or some sign up form or any subscription form or any other type of form, right? So what we can do is we can use VLs, as I told earlier, and you can usually we import any component using import model login from the location, right? We can convert those syntax to constant model and then import syntax, which is a function lambda function, which is uh, basically import function of Webpack, right? And you can also tell Webpack to prefetch this component. Let's say it's a login component, then we'll need to prefetch it. Prefetch is basically something which it loads JavaScript once the page is loaded, like completely, right? So which is good method when we have a pop-up which is regularly used by users, right? So in that case, we can add this type of comment Webpack prefetch component true. Right. So using this method, what will happen is that all your models will be loaded when a user clicks that specific button. Right. And this can also be this is useful to obviously models and poppers. It is also useful to our routes and pages. Right. So when we are using view router, let's say we are using native VueJS rather than NuxtJS. So in that case, we can use this type of dynamic import syntax, and we can lazy load these components, right? And also with the components which are injected using VFVLs, right? So in that case, we can also use this type of loading method, and it will load that specific portion of JavaScript when user clicks or performs some action, right, based on the conditions, right? After that, we have uh, optimizing the library, the part called optimizing libraries, right? So there are many libraries which are very heavy or which has like a tons of polyfills for older versions of Internet Explorer or let's say older versions of Chrome and stuff like that, right? So we are mostly using Moment.js for date time manipulation. We might also be using GitHub's fetch library, which is what WG fetch. right? We are also using Lodash in most of our applications, then also Bootstrap View for many of our applications, right? So what we can do is we can optimize these libraries using ES6 or ES 2015 library methodology, right? So so ideally you can replace Moment.js with DateFNS, which is also a date parsing library, which is like around 2 KB or something, right? Moment.js is around 19 KB gzip compressed, right? We can the same way we can replace GitHub's fetch library with unfetch. One more thing is in Lodash, we can also do like we usually load it as a import underscore and import underscore from Lodash, right? So what we can do is there is a plugin called Babel plugin transform imports, which we can configure in our webpack in our Nuxt config, and using which the only method that we have used from Lodash will be loaded. And then we have Bootstrap View. Yeah, so this one is more important because like we'll have Bootstrap View for many of our applications, right? And we use we load it using Nuxt modules, right? So in that case, what happens is that let me show you the graph of how much like what is the size of Bootstrap View. Yeah, this is the past version of Bootstrap View, like the previous, I think around 2.0.0. But yeah, right now Bootstrap View takes around 1.68 MB of total file size, and even if gzip is like 101 KB. Right. So what we can do is rather than loading Bootstrap View using Nuxt module, we can use load them individually, right? So we can write a code. Let's say import b popup from Bootstrap View popup Bootstrap View, right? We can load b model from Bootstrap View. So using this, I have tried this thing in my application, and this is the result. So let me show you. Yeah, so I applied this methodology across my all 400 plus components, and earlier the Bootstrap View size was around 755 KB. This is an older version, not current version. So that was 755 KB, and after implementing that strategy, it reduced by half. Right. So from 755, it came down to 350 KB. Right. So this is a huge improvement when it comes to page speed improvement, right? Because your JavaScript loading time will be faster. Your CPU time will be faster. Right. So rather than we should optimize the libraries as far as possible. Right. So standard practice for this thing is that rather than using Nuxt modules, you can use the libraries in the component that you need, right? So for example, we have view carousel that's there for slider, or that's there for homepage only, right? So what we can do is we can import view carousel in header or hero section or slider component only, rather than loading it in Nuxt config or module or in plugins or anywhere else. Right. So this will that package will only be loaded when the component is visible on the screen. Right. After that, yeah, certainly. This is the third point that I was telling you, importing everything in the component. So in the left-hand side, I have an example of using view carousel. So rather than loading it in view Nuxt config, we'll load it into the script portion of the respected view component. Right. So this will be faster, much faster. Right. And yeah, this is something that's available in Webpack. Like Webpack has many optimization methodologies inbuilt. So this is something I call split chunks, which is forcefully splitting our chunks, right? So let's say we have some file we have some library which is like 2 MB, or and we are unable to optimize it, right? So we can use split chunks methodology, split chunk option of Webpack, and in that we can specify minimum size and maximum size of any JavaScript file. And when you use this method, what Webpack will do is Webpack will try to uh, force that JavaScript like it will try to split that JavaScript file into multiple files, right? So I have specified, let's say 50 KB and 750 KB, right? So any JavaScript file won't be larger than 750 KB, right? And what this method does is it will help us to load JavaScript files in parallel, right? So rather than loading, let's say, app.js and having all the things inbuilt, we can just specify split chunks and give the sizes in that, and it will forcefully decrease the size of all the libraries, right? So this is something I don't use regularly, but yeah, it is also useful, right? Because since HTTP 2.0 is there everywhere on the web, so we can request more than 6 files now from the single endpoint, right? So in those cases, it is more useful, right? As it loads all the files in parallel, right? So yeah, these are main optimization that we'll use for any JavaScript or HTML speed improvement. And after each improvement, what I do is personally, what we should do is we should try to check our Webpack bundle analyzer graph, and also try to deploy it to the staging or testing environment, and check our Google page speed whether it's been improved or not, right? Because like that is something benchmark, right? After that, we have some of the other optimizations related to let's say caching, right? So if you are using Netlify or Vercel or any other Heroku or any this type of ready-made deploy methodology, then caching is inbuilt. If you are using your own servers to deploy your application, then you should be caching your JavaScript file, let's say for a month or two or something like that minimum, right? And so that whenever a user comes to our site again for repeated use cases, it will load site faster for those users, right? Then obviously we should use all type of CDNs as far as possible for images, JavaScript, CSS, everything, right? So we can use let's say Cloudflare or CloudFront for caching these like providing CDN like as a faster experience to the users, right? And after that, if your application is a kind of dashboard, right, so user will be able to access all the data after they log in, uh, then in those cases you should you also use service workers, right? So what service worker does is that it basically loads the application from the cache itself that it has. Let's say user is revisiting the site, right? So in Flipkart, when you visit the site in mobile again, so it shows that there is new version available, refresh the page, right? So that is something that's being done by service worker, right? So all your JavaScript, CSS images will be passed through a service worker, and they will give the instant response rather than calling it on the web. And if there is an update available, it will inform user to refresh the page, right? So that it can load the newer JavaScripts, right? So this can be more useful for admin or a dashboard type of applications, right? Apart from that, yes, you can also do, let's say if you don't need SSI, you can disable those SSI in the part where the pages are accessible after login. So admin or obviously the dashboard. After that, you can also use import based on client or server. So for example, carousel or this type of sliders, right? So this will be only be visible on client side only, right? We don't need them to parse them on server side, right? So what we can do is we can import them conditionally, right? So the carousel I showed you, what I do is I check whether it's a client or server, and then only I load those libraries, right? So what this does is this basically improves our where is that? Yes, this can reduce initial server response time, right? So in when there is this higher time in server response, then we can use this type of process.client and process.server methodologies to load only libraries even on server side, right, that are needed, right? So that server don't have to compile and like tokenize, all this stuff, all those stuff, right? So yeah, that is it. And main thing is regarding any speed improvement or any performance improvement optimization is that repeating or like all of these things on every quarter or every 2-quarter basis, right? So like every day we are pushing tons of code or to our production server, right? So what we should do is we should keep a cycle of 6 or 3 months to optimize our code on the repeated basis. And yeah, so that is the way. Yeah, so that's it from my end, and I'll be happy to take question answer from the community. Yeah.
Great, Tarun. Thank you so much for your presentation and for a great session. So you have questions, a lot of questions. Let me one by one go through them, and I'll put
Yes.
forward to you.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's start with the question of Animesh. can you show the demo of Lodash optimization? So do we have a
yeah, so usually what I prefer is that let me show you a little bit of code. I won't go in depth, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Wait.
Tarun, let's keep it more precise, right?
Correct. I'll keep it. Wait, I will. Yeah. So so one of the main mistake that we make using Lodash is that we import is something like this, right? So we do import, then underscore from Lodash.
Zoom in for a bit.
Yeah, sure, for sure. Sorry for that. Yeah, so whenever we are loading Lodash, we use a syntax like this, right? Rather than using in that way, we should try to load only files that we need, only functions we need, right? So let's say we are using short by function only, then we should load that specific function only from Lodash, right? You can load it via this way, or you can also do short by from Lodash and short by. Sorry, yeah, like this way, right? And once you use, if you're using this methodology, then the plugin I showed you in the presentation, Babel plugin transform imports, this is something you will need to use for NuxtJS, or you will have to configure in the website. Right, but I prefer rather than using the plugin, I'll go with this type of import syntax, like this was there in the code itself, right? So this won't load full Lodash. It will just load the function that's needed in those pages. Yes, that's it. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. I
Okay,
thought
great. Let's go with the next question from Vishal. Actually, he has 3 questions. Let's go with it one by one. So the first question from Vishal is, how similar or close is this to other photo stock out there like Shutterstock or FreePic?
Okay, yeah. So like we started 4 years back only, and it's a pretty similar to let's say Icon Finder rather than FreePic or Flat Icon. So we have a contributor community of 1,500 plus designers, and most of Flat icons are like been designed by their team only. Right, so that is the main difference, and we are very much focused on quality content, right? So recently, if you are visiting Flat Icon, so I have seen that their quality has been like decreased dramatically. 2 to 3 years back, they had like very good quality icons, and we used to really admire their quality assurance team. And like we are only focusing on quality content for now for icons, and also we are right now we are trying to make very good mark on our app and plugin ecosystem, right? So none of this platform has that good plugin ecosystem. So we have plugins and add-ons for Sketch, then Figma, Adobe XD, then Microsoft Office, Google Slides, and everything. We also do have a desktop application using which you can like drag and drop icons on your like Google Slide, Canva, and any tool you are using, right? So so that is something we are trying to help users by improving the user experience for the icons,
So
by the way they use the icons. Yes.
So this is what you're showing as the Chrome extension, I guess.
No, this is the app, desktop app. So let's say I hope, yeah, it's a desktop app. So I'm using, let's say I'm designing this presentation, I can like directly drag and drop this icon.
Okay, there's an icon on the app.
Yes.
Great. Okay, let's move to the next question. Vishal asked the second question, what vision made you do this? Basically the idea behind.
So as I told you, when we started in 2016, there was two major players in Icon platform. One was Icon Finder, and another one was the Noun project. Then with the Noun project, obviously the problem is still same. They have one style, black and white icon only. And with Icon Finder, what we felt like we are like too much into designing and engineering, right? So what we felt was there were missing parts in terms of new features that they can add. So we wanted to create this online icon editor, using which anyone can edit the icon online, right? So we launched Icon Editor for the first time across any market platform, and yeah, so we wanted to improve the way user uses icons in the tools, right? So icon editor, then app, then plugins. So we were also the like for one of the first companies who introduced plugins for all the ecosystem. And right now, you know, if you check out, like we have most plugins available for all the tools that's available, whether designing or even marketing tools.
Great. Let's go. In the meanwhile, you can open up your website on the side, and I'll go
Yeah.
to the next question. On what specific
Okay.
feature you thought to use this tech stack?
Which one? Tech
Uh,
stack.
Tech stack, yeah.
Yeah, so I started using React 3 years back. We redesigned and we re-engineered our website in August 2018, like through 2 years from now. And at that time, we had we could go with either React or Vue. So there was one thing. So I'm more of a designer friend. I like to play with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript rather than writing a JSX or a style component, right? So and I wanted like the component to be there with all this functionality inbuilt, right? So I don't want it to write a CSS somewhere else and JavaScript somewhere else and things like that, right? So I checked Vue.js and I basically like the way of using single file component in coding, right? So I can write all my things in single place, and if I import that component, all those code will be loaded. And if I don't use that component, like it will be automatically optimized. Right. So for my perspective, single file component was something that triggered me to use Vue.js. Apart from that, obviously writing pure HTML, right? You don't have to learn anything else. Like it took me an hour or so to figure out that, okay, there is something called class name rather than just a class in React, right? Because in the beginning itself, 3 years back, right? So single file component, then the core HTML, CSS, that is something even still I would love to, like I go with Vue.js, like even the app you show right now, this is Electron based, and all these things are designed in Vue.js itself.
Great. Probably hearing you, it's quite overwhelmed. And
Yeah, thank
love
you.
to hear the made in India concepts is coming
Yes.
very live moment. Okay, let's move on to the next question by Tamanna. I'm not. So the question is, can you elaborate a bit about Webpack Prefetch?
Yeah, so let's say I have this page, right? And there is there is this component called sidebar in here, right? This is a referral program component, which is loaded when I click this button, right? It's not loaded when the page is loaded, right? Because like we perform optimization. So what Prefetch does is that there are two ways to perform this behavior. One, you when you click this button, the JavaScript will be loaded, and after that the component will be rendered, right? Second thing is you load the JavaScript when your site is idle, right? So let's say I'm idle on this, like the site is idle, there is nothing being loaded on the page, and I want this component to be loaded so that whenever a user clicks this button, it just shows directly rather than loading the JavaScript file at first, right? Because so that it should be loaded before the user clicks this button, right? So what Prefetch does is that after the page is loaded, when the CPU is idle, it will load the components that you need on let's say clicks or any trigger button, right? So it will load the JavaScript in the background, and whenever a user clicks this button, it confirms that whether it's been loaded or not. If that's been loaded, it will give like better experience for the user, right? Otherwise, what will happen is that user click this button, it will take a little bit, even 200 300 milliseconds to load that JavaScript, and after that this animation will be there, right? So there will be a little bit of delay. Let me see if
So is it like lazy loading or some other concept? Because I believe lazy loading does the same thing.
yeah, so this is a lazy loading only. Prefetching is something that helps lazy loading, right? It's not lazy loading versus prefetching. Uh, like lazy loading is a concept, and prefetching is like just an attribute or just an option for that, right? So when I click this button, yeah. So in my case, so when let's say let me show you like real example, right? So in this case, the JavaScript should have been loaded. One of this might be the JavaScript. So yeah, let me see. Yeah, so now if you see there were the JavaScript that were being loaded, right? So that belongs to, let's say, this component or my login page and stuff like that, right? And once user clicks that button, it won't load the JavaScript because it's been already loaded, right? So it loads the JavaScript before user clicks the button, but after the page is load is complete and it's idle.
Okay, so caching is also
Prefetching.
being done.
Yes, obviously, yes.
Oh, great.
Probably, Tarun, with this explanation of yours, one more question, a very
For sure.
significant one, get into my mind that you have said it's being loaded when the site is idle, right?
Yes.
So how many such components can be loaded in that moment of time? Suppose 3 to 5 seconds before I click that icon.
Yeah, so prefetching is something prefetching is something this is browser dependent technology, right? So if browser decides that it wants to load prefetched file, then only it will load. It won't be like for slower internet connection, Chrome will decide, okay, I don't want to prefetch these files, right? So those will be loaded when user clicks that button. For faster internet, it will be like Chrome will load automatically, like all the JavaScript, right? So it depends on the browser itself rather than us, basically. It's like image lazy loading.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, if the browsers decide. So you might have seen prefetching is a basic concept of Wave. Like in Wave, you can also use prefetching in link and stuff. Like, yeah, mostly prefetching is used in link. So this is something browser decides on its own. So when it's idle, it will load based on internet speed and stuff like that. Your
Great.
CPU, internet, everything. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with the next question from Naman. He says only 93, only 73% of browsers supporting lazy loading attribute for images. What option do we have for rest 27% of the browsers?
Yeah, so for those cases, you can like you maybe skip if you don't want to, like if your site is not that image heavy, then you can skip like you can just be like you can skip 22% of browser, or after, or if you still want to load, then there is components name view lazy load. Yeah, view lazy load. So you can use this component. This is something that performs the same behavior but using JavaScript, right? So we have this component, and you can use vlazy equal to image source. So this will perform like this will work for all the browsers, older, newer, all of them.
Okay, so this is not browser dependent; it is independent. So it will
Yes,
work
this
on
is correct. Absolutely, yes.
Great. So
and then one more, like adding to that, then you can also specify this loading image. Let's say if you want to do something like a medium type, right? Like a blurred pixel, and after a good image and stuff like that. So you can also do that.
or something like background blur or the animation.
Yes,
blur.
yes, yes.
Loading,
Correct. Yes, loading animations. Yes.
that skeleton which we generally show nowadays, something like
Uh, yeah, I mean, in Medium there is pixelated image first, and then they load the larger image. So
Right.
that is something we can do with images. Yeah.
Right. So there's one more question around the Webpack prefetch. So is Webpack prefetch different from NuxLink prefetch?
Uh, no, I think both of them are the same, right? So Webpack, like both of them are prefetching only. NuxLink is something that like when you scroll the page, let's say I'm going to the footer, right? So Nux prefetch will load this, will try to fetch the JavaScript for all these pages. Let's say all these pages. I have disabled Nux prefetching, so it won't work for my site. But yeah, so it will load the same way like the Webpack does. But what Nux prefetching does is that when you scroll the page, so it has this interaction observer, right? So if you're on the top of the page, it won't load the bottom link JavaScript, right? So all these pages will have different type of JavaScript related to that, all the pages, right? So what Nux link will do is they will load when you scroll the page, as you scroll the page. But I don't recommend that for a larger website. For smaller, it is pretty good, because for 5, 6, even 10 pages, it will perform. It will give user a very good experience. And they'll feel a smooth experience. Hello, am I there?
Sorry, my microphone was
Yeah,
off.
yeah, I thought so.
So thank you so much for your insights on performance and based on VueJS. And so we'll hope to see you again. The questions are done. We're done with all. I guess
Yeah,
no questions
Vishal
there
is
on
there.
the
Vishal is there. He's asking like whether infinite scroll is lazy loading, right?
Okay.
No, both of them are different concept. Like infinite scroll is like you load the data and then you update your DOM. And yeah, I mean, like lazy loading is basically a term, right? But infinite scroll is a different thing
Yeah, it's
in
based
this
on
aspect.
queries
Yes,
that on scrolling you have to load your data.
yes,
So it's
correct.
actually querying your data and not
Yes, correct.
lazy loading particularly.
Correct.
So that would be a difference. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So any more questions from the audience? I can't see any questions on Discord, neither on chat. People, we are done with the session. It's only 10 minutes to 8. We will be closing now. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself, ask directly to Tarun. Even James is also here. I'm not sure Gift if she's here or not. But you can reach out all of them on the Discord server for your specific queries. So Tarun has shared his social media links. You can reach out directly to him. Yeah, James is also here. So great. Thank you so much, all the speakers, and specifically thanking to Neha and Jaswant for a beautiful session, organizing everything. So today we went absolutely fantastic by going live on YouTube. So YouTube session link I'll be sharing in here. So you can check it out later. If you have missed anything, I'll be sharing this on Discord as well. So probably this would be the pattern up front for other meetups. You stay tuned. We have some meetups coming up for GraphQL next month in September. And even performance also, we are planning something. So a lot of things are coming ahead. And we'll see you again. Thank you, Tarun, James, and Gift for all the support and the talks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, bye.